I am a COVID ventilator survivor, and I've been through hell and back. I tried all different diets known to man. Prior to me getting COVID and having all the things that happened to me, that's when I was feeling the sickest. I could not lose weight. I was about 50 pounds overweight. I was on the ventilator for almost 15 days. And somehow, with the grace of God, I survived. And after that was when my nightmare really began. I had ICU psychosis from all the trauma and being sleep deprived, not eating. And I was like a noodle, a Gumby. So I could not sit, I could not stand. And that was terrifying. I had lost almost 50 pounds. So I was down to 164, which was fantastic. A horrible way to lose the weight.
There we go. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm here. I want to welcome Denise today to our podcast. She's going to share our success story. She's coming somewhere from Earth. So we'll leave it at that. Well, Denise, welcome. Tell us just a little bit about your background.
Hi, Shawn. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for having me.
Sure.
I'm from Northern California, up by beautiful Mount Shasta. And I guess I'll start by saying that I am a COVID ventilator survivor. And I've been through hell and back. And it's a miracle and a blessing that I am here to talk to you today.
We're glad you survived and are here. And Mount Shasta is beautiful. I've driven by there many times, so I'm away from.
Oh, yes, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I guess maybe go back farther and tell us maybe your background and how you grew up and that type of stuff, and then we can get into what's happened over the recent times.
I had a great childhood. Grew up in a normal North American family, very happy childhood. Never had any health issues or weight issues growing up. Was very lucky. I could eat or drink pretty much everything I wanted, pretty much up until I was in my early 40s. That's when I started menopause early. And then that's when everything started to go south from there. I was not able to just eat and drink the things that I wanted like I was before.
So let me just ask you something here, because when people say I could eat or drink anything I wanted, and it may often mean I didn't gain weight doing that, but like a lot of people, they eat and drink whatever they want, but maybe they don't gain weight, but they have digestive issues, maybe they have skin issues, maybe they have low mood, maybe they have itchy skin, maybe they have all these things that we think are normal, but we don't attribute them to food. But were you just like literally as healthy as could be and no issues at all up to your 40? Or were there some things?
Literally, I did have a few years there where I'd pack on a few pounds and then I would lose it when you're in your 20s and 30s, you lose weight pretty quickly. So I would lose 10 pounds really easily. I worked out all the time, was very active. But yeah, I drank alcohol, never did drugs, of course, but drank alcohol, ate pretty much anything I wanted, fast food, fried foods, you name it. And luckily, I just never had any issues until around in my 40s after menopause. That's when I really started to have digestive issues and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, like I said, because a lot of us, it's something we're discovering is that like for instance, with diabetes, we don't really diagnose diabetes until blood glucose hits a certain level. But really, that's being often 10, 15 years prior to that. We're seeing insulin levels climbing, and it's a subclinical disease that's passing there. And some of us, it develops more outwardly earlier, where others it's more insidious. And it's almost, if you get it early sometimes and you respond to it appropriately, sometimes that's almost better. But sometimes if you don't, you just let it build up for years and years and years because it's not that bad, then that may be, potentially a worse situation for some. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going now.
What I was going to say is I was very lucky. Most of my blood work always came back healthy. My cholesterol was in my 40s, started to creep up a little bit. My LDL and triglycerides. I was quite a wine snob, and I love my margaritas and my vodka tonics here and there. Was enjoying life. However, though, I started to notice that those things were starting to get to me. Didn't feel good after I drank alcohol. But my labs were always great. I never had any issues. I've never been on pharmaceutical drugs other than the Eliquis that I was taking because I had a pulmonary embolism with my COVID diagnosis.
Yeah. So like you said, menopause early. Any idea why you went through early menopause? That's usually it's something, early to mid 50s is when most women experience it. But what do you think led to that for you?
My mother and my grandmother both went through it early. So I think it was a hereditary type of thing. I was about 45 when I went through it, and I did it cold turkey, didn't use any meds, anything. And so I did it just like my mom and my grandmother did, and I made it through. It was not too bad.
Okay. Okay. And then so after getting through menopause, you gain a little bit of weight. Did you struggle to take it off at that point? Was it like, no, it's not coming off type of thing?
Yeah, after menopause, then I started noticing that around my stomach and midsection area that I was gaining the weight, and it was really hard to get it off. And I tried all different diets known to man, Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig. They weren't doing keto at the time, but I did do, what was the diet with the beef and all that years ago?
Maybe Atkins diet?
Atkins diet, yeah. So I did that, and that always worked for me. So that was my go-to diet. And I've always loved meat, so it was pretty easy for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned like you started gaining a lot of weight around your midsection. That's interesting because women, when they go through menopause, often develop a more male style of fat pattern. Most men have the big beer bellies, and women tend to store weight around their hips. Usually there's biomechanical and physiological reasons for that. But as women's hormonal profile shifts to a more male-like pattern, their obesity shifts that way too. And it's concerning because whether men or women, if you start developing abdominal fat, that increases your risk for a number of diseases like heart disease. So it's definitely not a good pattern to be in.
Yeah, I've always been concerned with my cholesterol levels. They weren't super high, but they were higher than they should be. But I never seemed to have any issues with it prior to that. But then when I came down with COVID, and then all the things that have happened since then have been really hard. And can I go into some of those?
Yeah, sure. Of course. So you're 40. How old are you now, by the way?
Actually, I just turned 60 in February.
Oh, okay. Okay. So 16 February. So obviously the COVID's in the last, so from 45 menopause through the last few years, COVID obviously is the last 2-3 years ago. There were no major changes to your health that you can recall? Was it just pretty much kind of stayed in kind of a holding pattern?
Yeah. Prior to me getting COVID and having all the things that happened to me, that's when I was feeling the sickest. I could not lose weight. I was about 50 pounds overweight. So I was about 212, something like that. I'm 5'6.5". So I thought that I carried it well, but of course I didn't. In pictures, I would see myself and just not like how I looked. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here.
Oh, that's okay. So, well, I mean, it's good because you say you're a little over 200 pounds at 5'6". You're in your late 50s at this point. And then obviously we have this COVID pandemic where, a person with your body habits, this is definitely at risk. These are the at-risk populations because they're hard to ventilate. You've got probably some metabolic derangements going on. So I guess you can go into the experience with COVID. I don't know. Were you early in the pandemic, later in I got it November of 2021, I think I had it. And I was kind of a couple of days I was out, but it wasn't that bad for me. But let's talk about your experience.
Okay. Prior to me getting COVID, like I said, I was in my late 50s and I did have a lot of digestive issues. I had horrible brain fog, almost debilitating at times. And no matter what I ate, small or large meals, I felt full all the time. So I figured all my blood tests always came back fine, except for my cholesterol being a little elevated. So I decided to go see a rheumatologist thinking I had some type of rheumatoid disease. And he found all the tests were fine. And he just said that I probably needed to lose some weight. So I was really frustrated with that. And then fast forward, I contracted COVID early November 2021. And just like everybody else that I knew had it, was pretty mild. I wasn't too worried about it. And going on the second week, I thought I was going to feel better, but then I started to take a turn for the worse. I had a friend coming over and checking on me, and my sister was getting worried because I wasn't answering phone calls and text messages from her. So my friend came over, was checking my oxygen, and it started to drop from the 90s, then down to the 80s, then down to the 70s, and it would go back up a little bit. And on Thanksgiving Day, we checked it, it was 68. So with my sister's urging, my friend took me to the ER, and I was hypoxic in the ER, which I was still talking. I was not turning blue. The ER docs were shocked that I was not turning blue. And then after all the tests, they found out that I had a pulmonary embolism in my right lung, which was terrifying. And so they admitted me into the hospital. And he said that I probably would have died that evening had I not come in. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, sure. Of course. Yeah. So I guess at some point they proceeded to ventilate you.
Yeah. So I was in quarantine for the 14 days. And I was actually, my sister was told that I was going to be released possibly on the 14th day. I was feeling pretty good. I didn't feel too bad. And I was awakened early in the AM of the 14th day in quarantine and told that I was having issues with my oxygen, that they needed to put me on a ventilator, which I was terrified, did not want to go on a ventilator. And I asked them, what if I choose not to? And they said, you will die. And so I said, okay. And faced with death, you just say, okay. And then I don't remember anything after that. I was on the ventilator for almost 15 days. And somehow, with the grace of God, I survived. And after that was when my nightmare really began.
Okay. Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. It's got to be scary because they will sedate you and give you all these drugs to so you can tolerate a ventilator. So you're not going to remember most of that. But were you ever at all awake and realizing you were ventilated? Was there when they extubated you? So
I don't. Thank God. Yeah. Thank God. I don't remember anything of being ventilated. In fact, when I was taken off, I'm sure I was told by the nurses and doctors, but I don't remember until about the third day after. And I still couldn't wrap my head around, but I had ICU psychosis from all the trauma and being sleep deprived, not eating. I was on a liquid diet after I was off also until almost 3 or 4 days before I was released. I was in the hospital almost 40 days, most of it in ICU. So when they did tell me I was on a ventilator, I still couldn't comprehend with my mental state at that moment with the ICU psychosis. And what really made me realize I had been on one was when the physical therapist came in and tried to sit me up. And I was like a noodle, a Gumby. So I could not sit, I could not stand. And that was terrifying. So that's when that all began. And luckily, I'm a very strong person, so I worked through it. You have tons of anxiety. And I was able to get through that process. And thank God I was released and I was able to go recuperate with family for a few months. But in the process, I had to learn to walk again. My throat had a lot of issues because of the intubation. I couldn't swallow very well. So I had to be very careful what I ate. Lost all my hair. I used to have beautiful long blonde hair, shoulder length. So this is about 1 year and 4 months worth of brand new hair. I had just peach fuzz. Almost if you had cancer and chemo. I had lost all the hair. I have neuropathy in my feet and I have PV, the vertigo, which when I move my head, the positional, I have that on my right side. So I have to be real careful. And so it's been a tough road.
Outside of the ventilation, were there any other drugs that you were administered for COVID that you were aware of?
All kinds of things. You mean when I was in the hospital?
Yes.
I wasn't given remdesivir, thank God. I had told them in the ER that absolutely not. And I had taken ivermectin under a doctor's supervision and a Z-Pak prior to going to the hospital. And I feel like that saved my life somehow. Even though it didn't stop it, I think it somehow saved my life. But when I looked at all my medical records, that I was on all kinds of different drugs. I remember a lot of hallucinating. That's probably the most I remember. And not knowing what was real and what wasn't while I was in the hospital.
Yeah, there's a lot of ICU psychosis where all the medication changing the sleep rhythms and atmosphere really can do a number on you. So you get released from the hospital, you have a blood clot. I assume you're on blood thinners. So what happened? You're starting to recover, starting to slowly get your strength back up. What else is going on with you?
So I had lost almost 50 pounds. So I was down to 164, which was fantastic. A horrible way to lose the weight. But I lost almost the 50 pounds. So that I felt so much better. And just the recuperation period, learning to walk again. I lost all my muscle mass. My body was just, like I said, like a Gumby. I used to have beautiful muscular legs and they just were atrophied. Everything got atrophied. And people probably don't know, but when you're on a ventilator or when you're in a hospital bed for a long length of time, your stomach muscles, your diaphragm weakens, and you need your diaphragm in order to breathe. And so when the diaphragm was weakened, it was really scary because I would have these tachycardia moments and my heart rate would just raise up if I just stood up too fast. And that was terrifying, major anxiety after that. So I had to really use mind over matter and work on keeping myself calm. And so I learned to just work with that and keep myself calm. So learned to walk again with the walker. Surprisingly, my muscle memory was pretty good and it started to come back within about a month and a half. So by March, I was walking on my own, still kept the walker nearby as a crutch. When you go through these types of traumas, you always feel like you need a crutch. I wanted the oximeter on my finger every minute. You check your oxygen. You're always checking your blood pressure. Luckily, that's subsided and I'm not so paranoid about it. But I'm such a strong person. I have such a positive attitude. And I think that really helped me. And so I've just been working forward, just plugging along. And now that I'm feeling stronger, I'm going to start to do some weight training and start to build up my muscle mass again. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think that's obviously a great idea. And that's something people don't realize, that just a week of bed rest can literally destroy a lot of muscle mass and bone mineral density. And you're talking about the respiratory thing. So how you'd lost the 60 pounds, does nutrition have a role in here? Is there some sort of nutritional component to this that comes in?
Yeah. So prior to getting sick, my friend was wanting me to do carnivore. He's been doing it for 7 years, I think. And so I had just started it prior to me getting sick, maybe a week. So I was excited to try to get back on that. And since March, I came back home to my home and I've been doing carnivore ever since. I've been doing about 80-20. Prior to me getting sick, I used to eat all non-GMO organic, but I ate tons of salads. So I would make these huge salads with every vegetable known to man. And I thought I was eating healthy. And like I said, I would have a glass of wine. Since having COVID and being back being out of the hospital and starting carnivore, I don't drink alcohol anymore. Haven't had a sip of alcohol. And surprisingly, I don't miss that. That was the easiest thing for me. The hardest part of doing carnivore was giving up the sweets. And I was even dreaming about chocolate cake. And I don't eat chocolate cake very much, but I do have I love brownies. And so I would dream about pizza and chocolate cake. And then about 3 weeks into that, I started feeling that was all gone. And then I was craving my hamburger. And I love ground beef and I do lots of different things with it. And I love the steaks. I eat eggs, bacon for breakfast. And I throw a little veg in, very low carb veggies. I use zucchini and a little red onion and maybe some cilantro. That's about it. And I can tolerate it pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad it's been helpful to you. You said prior to the COVID experience, you went through menopause, you gained weight, you got up to 200 pounds or 212 pounds. Has the diet been appreciably different for you from terms of, say, satiety and things like that, or maintaining? Is it easier for you to do than past diets?
Yeah, I've maintained my weight loss since the hospital. So I think I gained 2 pounds and I didn't want to try to lose more weight after being so traumatized. My body, I wanted to give it some time to heal. And so I wasn't concerned about gaining 5 or 10 pounds even. But luckily, I've kept it right about 166, 165. So I'm really happy with that. And it's been very easy. I've been on a tight budget, of course. I'm losing my job. And so I was able to afford it. I know a lot of people worry that it's expensive and it's not. Like I said, I eat 80-20 ground beef and I make it in lots of different ways. And then I have my steaks, my bacon and my eggs. I try to be real creative I love to cook. I like to do. Now, if I had someone like you making your wonderful steaks, I would be the happiest girl alive. I could never cook a steak like yours. They look fantastic.
Yeah, I got a lot of practice with it. I cook a lot of steaks.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate in that regard. But so the post-COVID residual, all the trauma from the ICU, the intubation, the period basically loss of all this muscle and stuff like that. How have you been recovering from that? And are you still on blood thinners? Because I know blood thinners they keep you up on blood thinners for a long time, sometimes indefinitely. What's going on with you medication wise and otherwise?
The only medication I was on was the Eliquis. And I was told to stay on it until the 6-month mark afterwards. And I had a scan in August of 2022 and it came back clear, thank God. So I was told that I can get off the Eliquis probably in September. However, I was really scared and had a little PTSD from all the trauma. So I thought, I'm just going to stay on till Christmas. And then Christmas came and I was afraid to get off it. And then I said, well, I'll just stay on till my birthday. So I finally decided I should get off it. At the end of February, I stopped taking it. And so I'm blood clot free, thank God. I'm still really worried about that. I think about it. I was a little concerned of doing carnivore, being on a blood clot, being on Eliquis. I wasn't sure if that medication would react to anything, but I never read anything bad about that. And I didn't have any bad things occur. So I was really happy with that.
Yeah, certainly. It's good to see a clear scan. That's often encouraging. And
yes.
Some of the factors that went into driving that blood clot, obviously an infection can do it, but so can some of the underlying metabolic factors that might have been present and hopefully are resolving as far as that's concerned. How you said your leg, all the muscle mass in your leg went away. Are you able to walk normally now? I mean, you still using supports, or where are you at as far as your activity level?
Yeah, I walk completely normal now. I have to be careful going up hills or like downstairs, upstairs. I walk my dog at the dog park every day. I try to do about 1 mile to 2 miles. I try to get in 10,000 steps a day if I can. And I was always a very active person, even though I was overweight prior. I was super active. I love to hike. And I do mow. I have a 1/4 of an acre of land and I do mow it with a self-propelled mower. So I actually have been doing that since I've been home, and I've done my yard twice already. So that's huge for me. First time I got super out of breath and my heart rate started to raise quite a bit, but then it subsided. I would just take rest and drink water. So I keep an eye on it. I'm cautious, but I'm pushing myself more and more every day to do more. I don't have the energy I used to have. I don't have this physical strength to pick up things with my hands like I used to. I was my neighbor called me the toughest woman he's ever seen. Tough old broad, he used to call me, just because I could do a lot of things men could do. But I can't really do that as much anymore. Maybe in time.
Okay. And then follow up. Are you still like following up physicians? Because it's been, 1.5 years now since I guess you went through the COVID sort of stuff. Are you still having outpatient follow up for this, or is that kind of subsided?
Yeah. She's doing my blood work. I had my blood work done in March and everything looked great. I was concerned about my kidneys because I had been going to the bathroom a lot and that scared me a little bit. And that subsided finally. Like I said, my A1C was fantastic, 5.2. Was so happy. I noticed on my blood work from the hospital, it was up to 6.6. And a lot of my blood work at the hospital was off the charts, which was pretty scary to see that. But everything has come back to normal. And since I've been on carnivore, my LDL has gone up just a smidge, but it actually went down from what it used to be. It went up and then down. My triglycerides dropped a lot and my HDL has been raised. So I'm real happy with that. My vitamin D3 just went up out of the blue and my B12. So my B12 shot up from 439 up to the 1100. So that's a little bit strange. And the only other problem I'm having is I had an ultrasound done of my neck area. I've got a little bit of a lump here, not a lump, but it's like sagging. And my doctor thought maybe because I lost the weight, it was just from being overweight, excess fat. But we did a ultrasound and some nodules in here were a little bit inflamed. So we're going to do another one at the end of this month. And I'm just praying that it's nothing serious.
Yeah, hopefully not. Yeah, the B12 going up is pretty typical. That's typically what I see with people on carnivores. Their B12 tends to be the top of high normal, even above normal, which I think is fine. And then the other thing you meant was vitamin D3. All the vitamin D you're receiving now, for the most part, is D3. That's what you're getting. So we'll often see, like when I check my vitamin D status, it's 100% vitamin D3, which is probably more helpful than the total number. But it's one of those things they just usually measure your total and don't distinguish it. But you mentioned you lost your job or you don't have a job. Was it because you had COVID and got sick, or what was the reason? And they said, we're not taking you back, or what was the reason for the loss of job? Do you know?
No, I was a caregiver actually for a quadriplegic woman. And prior to that, I had taken care of my father who had dementia. Rest his soul, he passed away in 2018. So I was in the caregiver mode. So I just stayed with that field. I was in the tourism industry for many years before that. I actually lived in Costa Rica for a few years, had a wonderful life there. But I was a caregiver, and just physically, once I got COVID and was hospitalized, everything just stopped. And so I had to come back in March to take over all my bills and start to get that taken care of. I had a little bit of a savings, and I've had family and a few friends helping me out. And so right now I'm looking for remote work and a remote job, and it's not been easy to find something. So a lot of people say there's a million jobs out there, but it's surely not easy. There's a lot of scams out there. So I've been having a hard time.
I see. Okay. And well, Costa Rica, yeah, so I've been there once. It was a neat sort of place. A lot of Americans live there. It's interesting. I think some like other countries actually American, which is an interesting thing to see. You'd said a lot of anxiety at some point, either, I can't remember if you said that prior to the COVID experience or just subsequent to that.
No, after. Yeah, just all the different things that I was experiencing, the tachycardia, not being able to breathe as well, things like that. It just made me have anxiety. It would just raise as soon as that would happen, or my BPV, when I would turn my head, I would one time I got out of bed to go to the bathroom early in the morning and I almost fell on the floor because it just hit me so hard. That really scared me. And I didn't know what that was until I actually went to physical therapy after I was home and then was told what that was. Thank God. I thought I was having a stroke when it first happened. So you just have a lot of anxiety based on that. And I would always work through it and just try to remain calm and know that these were just symptoms of what I had gone through. So now I just try to keep positive attitude and just keep plugging forward.
Yeah, not being able to breathe certainly would be something that would be anxiety provoking in that way. So you said even without a job, you're able to afford, like I said, ground beef generally is pretty cheap. It's as cheap as probably just about any food out there in many cases. And it's obviously got a lot of nutrition in there. What are there people like in your immediate family, friend circle that, what are you doing with diet? Are they questioning it? Or is there people that are concerned about your dietary choice?
Yeah, most of my family was a little bit, they thought it was weird. Like, why would I want to do that? And my sister was a little concerned because she's remembering the things she's learned in the past about how we all thought eating fat was bad for us, which I've discovered from you and from Dr. Berry and lots of other people that it's not, that we've been lied to. So it's just been hard to convince them. I'm always having to convince them it's okay. I'm eating eggs and eating salt. When I was being cared for, I was at my sister's home. She was really scared to death, wanted me to be on the SAD diet, a heart diet. In the hospital, they had me on a heart diet, but they were giving me mashed potatoes and all these gravy, all these terrible things. The food was the most horrible I've ever had. And when I was in the hospital. So yeah, I love to cook. So I do some pretty good meals, but yeah, mostly, luckily, a few of my friends know about carnivore and one of them is doing it. So I have some support there.
Okay, it's definitely good to have some support. Obviously, you went through, this is a dramatic alteration to your life. You go through this, and there's a lot of things that are different now. Can you remember anything that's consistently gotten better from before you started carnivore to afterwards? Because,
Yes.
Started hit with COVID, so there's a big confounder there. But how do you, 10 years ago versus today, what's different? What's better? What's worse?
Prior to getting COVID, when I was having all the tests done from the rheumatologist and all of that, saying that I had nothing wrong with me per se. I thought I had rheumatoid arthritis because I was having a lot of joint pain. Like I said, bloating, horrible brain fog, where it was really hard to get through the days and through work. But now I have no brain fog, my total mental clarity, no mood swings, pretty much wake up feeling great. I have no sleep issues. See, what else? Yeah, I mean, there's been all time wonderful things since And I don't know if that's attributed to just me losing the weight. I don't think so. I know that not drinking alcohol is a big one and not having sweets, because when I do eat sweets, I can tell immediately something's going on in my body. Right now, I do get like a vibrating feeling between my breastbone and my belly button. That's really bothering me. I don't know what that is, but I think it's when I do eat carbs, I get that more. So I'm not quite sure what that is. My doctor has no idea.
Yeah, it's weird. That sounds like a weird vibration. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea what it is.
Maybe when they intubated you, they left something in there. And I'm just kidding. That's but,
I sure hope not.
Yeah, no, hopefully not. I'm sure that's not the case. So you've got the positional vertigo you mentioned, you've got just a few residual from the COVID experience. What do you have left to overcome? You said you put a little more muscle on. You're working on that, I guess. What do you think you guys still have left to overcome?
Just to get stronger. I want to get my muscles built back. I hope that they do come back. What do you think about when someone loses their muscle mass? I know it's difficult to get it back, but if I start working out, will the muscle have memory, and will that help me?
Yeah, certainly. There's no sort of contraindication to trying to get stronger, and it can happen. We've got studies on people in their 90s that put on muscle. So it's definitely there if you just do the right thing. So eating enough protein and doing the resistance training. And yeah, there is a concept of kind of muscle memory. As your muscles have had a certain level of strength, there's a pathway to get back to it that might be easier than a person that's never had that. So certainly, yeah. So you get back to it, just regular resistance training, eating adequate protein, and it may take a year or so, but I think it's certainly within the realm of possibility. But it's consistency over time that does that. And it sounds like you've got some time to do that right now. There's not a lot of valid excuses as far as I can see. So that'll hopefully be good for you. Do the doctors that here's an interesting thing. We went through this COVID pandemic and we heard a lot about social distancing, becoming vaccinated, these were the main talking points. And we never talked about metabolic health or losing weight or going on a good diet or getting regular exercise. It was never mentioned by any of the national media outlets, mainstream major health organizations never even commented on that stuff. What were your thoughts around that stuff? Did you feel like, hey, this is the time for me to get in shape because there's a pandemic going on, or was it business as usual? How did it work for you?
Oh no, I lost my job. I had just got a new job in early 2020, and I was working at a physical therapy office and as a front office person. And the pandemic hit. So I lost my job, and I was working at Macy's also. I lost both of the jobs and was trying to get on unemployment, which was a nightmare because millions of other people were trying. So if anybody was going through that, they understand what I went through. Somehow my paperwork got messed up. So my EDD, my unemployment was delayed about 6 months. So if I had not had my savings built up, I would have been in big trouble. That got me through. And then I was able to get the caregiver job. It was an easy, no-brainer type of thing. So that's why I decided to try that. And I was helping somebody, and I fell in love with the woman that I was helping. And then I was working prior to getting sick. And so I literally worked up until early November, and then I got sick, and then that's when it all stopped. And my one doctor has always tried to get me on, as soon as my cholesterol was a little high, she was trying to get me on statins. And I said, no way. I saw an interview, I think it was with Dr. Berry, and the doctor said, just tell your doctor that you are on a Mediterranean diet. And then they don't get so freaked out about it. So I did that, and she was happy. And since some of my levels had dropped down, she was real happy with that. And she's left me alone now. And she was always trying to get me on anxiety drugs, which I declined. And I always declined the statins. And I just said, I want to do a lifestyle change and try to do it naturally. So I've never been on a statin. The only prescription drug I took was Eliquis. And prior to getting sick, I was on a lot of great supplements, vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, quercetin, things like that, magnesium and calcium. So I've always tried to take care of myself. I was just overweight prior and having those other issues. Right now, I feel better than I've ever felt in my life as far as mental clarity, energy level, just nonstop energy levels, no more sleep issues. My skin has been wonderful. My hair, as you can see, is growing back nicely. This is my natural color, which I'm really surprised because I thought it would be gray would be awful. I spent most of my younger years having my hair highlighted and spending lots of money on that. So I'm real pleased with the color of my hair right now.
Okay. I'm glad you're doing better. You said you said like 160 pounds, 5'6". How much do you find you have to eat each day to maintain that weight?
I was doing an OMAD diet, 1 meal a day for months and months in 2022. Right after I started, my appetite really just plummeted. And so I pretty much would just eat my eggs and bacon around 1 o'clock. I don't usually like to eat too early in the morning. That was a good fasting all night until like around 1 o'clock. Have my eggs and bacon. And then if I get hungry, then I would make a little hamburger patty or I'd throw steak on. So primarily I try to stick with 1 meal a day and maybe just a little snack of some meat or some bacon that I've cooked up and I just munch on that. I love carnivore crisps and I do eat a low carb corn tortillas. I make tacos sometimes and they're very low carb. So that's never been a problem with me. And now that I'm going to start to do the weight training, I'm going to try to lose maybe about 10 more pounds. I'd like to drop a little more.
Okay. Yeah. And then hopefully, or at the very least, get more muscle and lose more body fat. The weight may stay the same, but your overall composition improves, which is also a good thing. Do you have any kind of social media that you participate in at all?
Oh, sure. I'm always on with you on Twitter and my Facebook and things like that. But primarily I'm on Twitter and Telegram and enjoy those. I'm not on Facebook too much these days.
Okay. Do you mind sharing your Twitter handle?
Sure. It's DLight777.
Okay.
DEELIGHT 777.
Okay. I think I've seen your comments. Yeah. I've got about 250,000 people, so it's hard to keep track.
I know. I do make comments quite a bit. I always make comments on there. I enjoy your Twitter very much. I'm pretty active, just researching and reading things on Telegram. And I'm on a couple other like True Social, I'm on lots of different apps and things like that or platforms. I am going to start thinking of starting my own YouTube channel, and that's going to be Sovereign Angel. And so I would like to talk more about what I went through dealing with being a COVID ventilator survivor and maybe helping people that lost their loved ones to that so that they can understand how it feels, that they wouldn't think their loved one was suffering or felt things, because I want to help them appease their fears of that.
Yeah. Certainly there's a lot of people that went through a tough time in the last few years, no doubt.
Sure.
Anything else we didn't get to chat about or that you want to share?
Oh, gosh. I have notes. I wrote a lot of notes. I guess that's pretty much it. Just that since I've been doing carnivore, I've been feeling fabulous and I'm looking forward to getting in the best shape of my life. I've always tried to work out and I've taken very good care of myself. And my weight just fluctuated back and forth, up and down throughout my life, which was easy in my younger years to get off. But I'm striving now to just be in the best shape of my life. Hopefully, by the end of this year, I'm going to be looking great and get my muscles back and be able to. I see my muscles under my skin, and I know they're there. So I'm looking forward to getting them back.
Good luck to you. And I think it's a great aspiration. Me too. I'm trying to get in the best shape of my life. I'm always trying to do that. But
you look fabulous. You're such an inspiration. And thank you for everything you do. And I'm getting really active too on the meat, promoting people to go onto this diet. And I'm also going to probably become a life coach through Revero. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Good to have you on here, Denise. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. We have another one of these at 3 p.m., guys, if you're interested. So we're going to another meeting.
Thank you, Shawn. So nice to meet you.
Likewise. Take care, guys. Everybody will see you guys.